Well, ladies and gentlemen, it happened. It happened. It happened. It happened. It happened. So let's. I, I'm not even. Look, I'm not even gonna. I'm not even gonna take time to Oh, welcome to the video, guys, because I gotta talk about this. I needed to get on here, and I needed to talk about this because so let's talk about The Last of Us season 2. It's it's out. Episode 2 just dropped today. Here I am. Here I am. I go to Michael's house. We watch WrestleMania. John Cena wins his 17th world title, you know. And I come home and I had heard some chatter about, this week's episode of The Last of Us being crazy. Oh my gosh, what an episode of The Last of Us! That ending, can you believe that ending? And I thought to myself, I'm like, I think I know how this is going to play The Last of Us 2, but I know the story of The Last of Us 2. I watched the cutscenes on YouTube, and I know exactly what happens of Joel in that game. So when I heard, oh, can you believe that episode? Oh my gosh, the ending of that episode. I can't believe they did that. I thought to myself, I think I know how this episode ends. So I go home and watch the episode, and lo and behold, so here we go. So this episode, now I did talk about episode 1 on the Zeke Setzo podcast, which that episode is going to go up this upcoming Saturday. So by the time you guys see this video, my breakdown and review for episode 1 will have already gone up. So whatever. But one of the things I had mentioned was I was wondering how the show was going to handle this particular thing. And by this particular thing, I mean this. So in if you've played The Last of Us 2, you guys know that game starts with Abby, who is a new character in the game. She kills Joel. She shoots him in the leg and then proceeds to beat him with a golf club. Um, and beats him to death with a golf club. Now, in the game, this was a brutally violent moment, and it very much caused a lot of division amongst fans. Not just because you killed a beloved character from a really popular video game, but because not only did you kill that beloved character, but then halfway through the game you decided to switch perspectives and have the player play as Abby and look at things from her perspective long after she had already killed Joel. And and because of that, I was kind of afraid that the series was going to do that same thing because number one, I like Pedro Pascal in the role as Joel, and I was not ready for him to die. You know, spoiler alert. By the way, this whole thing is going to be spoiler filled. So if you don't want to know what happens in episode 2 of The Last of Us, get out of here. So this whole thing's going to be filled with spoilers. So I wasn't ready for Pedro Pascal to die because I love him as this character. So I was kind of nervous at how they were going to handle it. And I have to say this. I love the way they did this. I love the way they did this. It is perfect and so much more effective than how they did it in the game. because the game, you meet Abby and you have no context, you have no backstory, you have no motivation. There's no context as to why she kills Joel, or you're playing that game for the first time and you're like, "Oh, she's a bad guy. Oh no, she's a bad guy. She's just killed our main character." And then you play halfway, and then all of a sudden, halfway through the game, they expect you to care all of a sudden after you spend the entire game basically wanting Ellie to get her, throughout the game, you're playing as Ellie, and you as playing as Ellie, you're after her trying to get your revenge. All of a sudden, the game tries to make you play as Abby at some point, um and it kind of, it's just so strange. And I, I and again, I was nervous as how they were going to handle it, and I think they handled it great, because number one, in the very first episode, we got to see Abby and her friends. um Basically, they bury all of the fireflies that were killed at the end of season one. They buried them all. We got to see Abby kind of, reliving reliving that moment, and seeing her, basically, she now has a mission. She wants to kill Joel, and Owen makes her this promise of, yeah, we'll find him and we're gonna kill him, and I'll help you find him, and I'll help you kill him. And she even says, all right, and if we do find him, and then we kill him slowly. And then episode 2 comes around. The way this episode starts with Abby having a dream sequence of her telling herself to not go in that room because she's going to find her dad's dead body. And it's like, oh, already they've already given me so much context into what she wants, that anger, the anger she has towards this person, that want for revenge. And then I think what really shifted that change for me was the speech, because in the game, Joel looks at Abby and goes, "Why don't you why don't you why don't you give some evil speech and get this over with?" And then Abby just goes, "Oh, you don't get to rush this," and then beats him with a golf club. But uh in how do I want to say this? In the show, um she does give context. She gives that backstory. She goes she goes, "Do you remember how many fireflies you killed that day? You killed 18 soldiers and one doctor. And that one doctor was my dad." And she looks at him and goes, "And you didn't even think about it. You didn't have one bit of remorse when you did it." And you could see just that anger build, that all that anger that she's been carrying for 5 years building up. And Caitlin Dever gives one of the best performances I've ever seen on TV. It just that anger, and then she starts tearing up, and she's going through it, and then all of a sudden she looks at the bag of golf clubs, and all of a sudden I looked at that and I went, "Oh no, here we go. Oh, here we go." And and she went, And she goes over, she picks it up, and then she tries to say some other stuff, and then that's when Joel goes, "Oh, would you shut up and just get this over with?" To which I thought to myself, you shouldn't have said that, because then that's when Abby says, quote for quote from the game, "You stupid old man, you don't get to rush this." And then first of all, she starts right from, like, in the game, she just hits him. She literally just swings it right at his face at first, and then it cuts to black. But in the show, she goes right for the knee, which they had shot him in the knee before they had before they got it to when they got him to the ground, they had shot him in the knee. And she starts right at that knee. She starts hitting him in that knee. And she goes from hitting him in the golf club. They cut away to Abby, not to Abby, to Ellie in the snow. And then all of a sudden they cut back, and she's then just pummeling him with her fist, just boom, 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 and you see the blood on her knuckles. And even Owen, you see Owen telling her, like, starting to tell her, like, Abby, stop, and like trying to kind of rein her back a little bit. Ellie goes into the house. She opens the door. She gets into the room, and Bella Ramsey. This is a stellar. I think the Emmy. If I was handing out Emmys today, Bella Ramsey and Caitlin Dever are getting Emmys for this today, because they were just that good in the show. Because both of them deliver just amazing performances. With Caitlin Dever, with that monologue she gives to Joel, but then with Bella Ramsey, as soon as Ellie goes in that room, she's immediately on the floor begging and pleading, "Joel, get up, please, please." And she's crying and she's screaming at the top of her lungs. And um and I love what I loved even more so. What I loved even more so is I loved the little detail. And I don't know, I can't remember if this is in the game. I'll be honest, I haven't seen the cut scenes or anything in a long time. So I don't know if this was in the game or not. But I like this little detail of of he's looking right at her, like Joel's looking, like they're making eye contact when all this is happening. I mean, yeah, one eye is basically closed because it's been that side of his face has been pummeled. Um, but but he sees her, and she's crying. They're just they're and she's screaming. She's telling him to get up, and then Owen tells her to finish it, and Abby takes the golf club, which has been broken. She takes the handle of the golf club, which was broken off, and again in the game, the way she finally dies is she smashes him in the skull with the golf club. Here, she takes that handle and stabs him right in the neck. And when that happened, that got more of a out of me than the game than him getting just cracked open with a golf club. Like, it was brutal. Like, the way they did it in the show. Again, I can't help. I can't sugarcoat. I thought the way they did it in the show was so much better than the way they did it in the game. It was more intense than the way they did it in the game. it was more emotionally impactful than what they did in the game. I cared more about the person who killed Joel, you know? Like I cared about Abby when and I yes, did I want her to kill Joel? No, like because I like the character. I didn't want Joel to die, but I understood that perspective. It's almost like it's like Thanos, you know? I don't want Thanos to snap his fingers and wipe out half of all life in the universe, but you can understand his perspective. You understand why he feels like he has to do this, you know? And you see the conviction and you see that he believes that he is doing the right thing, that he sees himself as a hero. When it comes to The Last of Us is a story that's all about perspective, you know? The Last of Us is a story that's all about perspective. You know what's a here's a better example. It's just like the Karate Kid slash Cobra Kai. Cobra Kai, the story of Cobra Kai and the Karate Kid is all about perspective. You have Johnny and Daniel, who in the Karate Kid, we're all on Daniel's side. We're all like, hey, yeah, no, Johnny was being a bully, and Daniel was Daniel needed to learn karate and stand up to these bullies, these kids who were bullying him. But as you get older, there's a part of you that's like, no, Daniel was kind of a jerkwad. Like Daniel was actually the bully in that situation. And then Cobra Kai comes out, and Cobra Kai, you see Johnny's perspective on it, and then that entire show is all about about looking at certain situations through the perspective of different characters. You know, like season one, you're looking at the events of the original Karate Kid through Johnny's perspective, and you're looking at it through Daniel's perspective as well. That is the Last of Us to a T. The Last of Us is about perspective. In Abby's perspective, Joel is a bad guy. Joel is evil in her eyes. In Joel's eyes and in Ellie's eyes, in Dina's eyes, Abby's the bad guy. You um, in Joel's eyes, the Fireflies were the bad guys because they wanted to kill Ellie because they wanted to kill Ellie. You know, um, there it, it's all about perspective, and the thing is that like Joel's actions in season one of The Last of Us were going to catch up to him, you know? And it's the same thing with the game also. Like that's why I was never opposed to the idea of Joel dying in the first place. The idea of Joel dying, it was not the thing that frustrated me because his actions in the first game, uh, although you understood why he did it to survive, he still did it. And he still basically created monsters and he created demons that maybe he didn't intend to create, but he still created them with his actions. And those actions were eventually going to catch up to him. And what I love most about the show is that the show delves into that so much more. And that's why and I was talking to Michael about this when we were it was just before we went to go see Sinners. We were talking about video game adaptations. And I said, you know what? I think The Last of Us is the greatest video game adaptation of all time because it it does such a better job of of furthering not just the lore of the game, not just the story, but it makes but it is more emotionally impactful than the game was. The games are just really fun to play, but they do have a good story. They do have good story and good emotions to it. But for the most part, the game is mostly fun for its gameplay. Okay. The show is just so much more emotionally impactful because you're not worried about, you know, oh, I have to, oh, wait, I gotta pick up the control. I got my PS4. I gotta pick up the controller. I gotta get to the next part here, you know. You're not having to worry about that. You're invested in the story. You're emotionally invested into what's happening. You know, whereas a video game, it's just not. That's just not the. That's not. It's hard to do that with a video game. Now I know there's some people will disagree with me on that, but that's a whole other discussion. That's a whole other discussion for another time. But yeah, no. Overall, guys, I didn't think I was gonna like this. I thought I was going to trash this season and trash this decision, but I think Craig Mazin is an amazing writer and understands emotionally resonant stories, and I think he did a masterful job with this episode. I just do. I think he did a masterful job with it. It was well written. The performances were great. The directing by Mark. I wish I could remember the director's name. Um, and now it's gonna kill me if I don't. Um, um, let's see here. Uh, Mark Mylod, Mylod, Mylod. Mark Mylod did an absolute, you know, worked on shows like worked on shows. Um, but but yeah, that is those are my I was going to wait until the season 2 was over to give my in-depth thoughts on the whole season. But after I saw this episode, I was like, I gotta talk about this. I gotta get on YouTube and I gotta talk about this. So yeah, that's why I decided to get on here and talk about this. Um, so yeah, here, so I'm, so this is that will do it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys like this video, please make sure you leave a thumbs up and subscribe. Oh, and by the way, I know some people have asked, where is my where are the MCU rewatch reviews? They are coming back. I actually did record a review for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, but I have yet to start editing it. But I am going to I I'm going to get to it. I will say this: expect it this week. Expect it at some point this week. So yeah, expect it at some point this week. But that will do it um for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys like the video, please make sure you leave a thumbs up and subscribe. I think you guys should subscribe to the channel because Zeke the Geek said so. And I will talk to you guys later. Peace out.